Have you ever watched a horror movie or Joe's Apartment with Cockroaches and thought it was a bit silly? Or have you ever been on a roller coaster and, not really got much of a thrill from it? Well, if that was the case, then the odds are that Brendan Walker, the director of the Thrill Laboratory, wasn't involved in making them. And he joins us on the line now. Brendan, you're very welcome.
Hi, Sheila.
So I just said there, if somebody was on a roller coaster, they didn't feel that it was actually doing anything for them, they weren't getting the wow factor, they weren't being freaked out, you probably weren't involved. And by that I mean you're an expert in generating fear and thrills, isn't that right?
That's right, yes. My title is a thrill engineer, so that's what I've, in the last 10 years, been specialised in doing, yeah.
And come here to me, in your private life, are you in a relationship?
I am in a relationship. In fact, actually, my partner's sat in the office directly opposite me, so be careful what you ask.
Okay, I will. I bet she loves that, Brendan. Yeah, he's a thrill engineer. My boyfriend's a thrill engineer.
Yes, that's right. That's what she's allowed to tell people, yeah.
So on a day-to-day basis then, what's a typical day for you? You come in and you decide you're gonna work on some kind of roller coaster, is it?
It's a really varied job. I mean, it takes me between looking and work at new rides for theme parks. I currently working on ideas for TV shows, so looking at TV entertainment, and also work in live performance and doing something for a horror film festival this autumn. So it really sort of moves around all sorts of genres, all sorts of types of entertainment. I'm not kind of just restricted to roller coasters, but it's the emotion of thrill which really intrigues me. In fact, my background originally was as a aeronautical engineer. I worked for military aircraft. It was quite thrilling in itself, but I moved into design and then trained for a little while as an artist. So it was actually the element of performance and sort of the whole theatricality of creating thrilling experiences that really intrigues me.
Yeah, and what about yourself then? Are you the type of person that you are constantly looking for something to push your limits so you can get a thrill yourself?
my personal pursuit. I think
work related.
Professional questioning here. But no, I can say that I'm kind of intrigued. I think that was one of the first things that really intrigued me. Was I was creating large mechanical sculptures for art galleries about 10 years ago, and I was watching members of the public getting excited by experiencing the sculptures, and I suddenly realised I was getting a kind of voyeuristic thrill from watching other people. And that was kind of like thinking, what's going on here? I mean, that was kind of my motivation. So it wasn't the stuff itself. It was kind of watching others, quite, secretly.
Indeed.
And, and then you suddenly realise that the idea of thrill is an incredibly complex area. And even though you might design something like a roller coaster, everybody experiences it in very different ways.
It's interesting you say that, because I have to admit I'm a complete wimp when it comes to anything. Other than I did a bungee rocket on my holidays years ago, but it was after a bottle of wine and a couple of little relaxers, and it was a bet over a coin. And I went up at it, and then I liked it so much I went again. But that was it, because I remember being in Euro Disney as well, once again, years ago.
Yeah.
And I decided to be brave, and I said, I'll do this roller coaster. I think it was an Indiana Jones. It was a Temple of Doom roller coaster. It was the biggest one there. I thought, I'm just going to go for this. And that was fine, and I felt brilliant. But like 10, 15, 20 minutes into the queue, and we were all this kind of little, you have to queue for ages, and it was like a snake formation, and my knees started to get weak. I started to break out in a sweat, and it kind of all became too much, and I decided to chicken out, and I was there with a friend of mine, and I had to say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And instead of being able to kind of scoot out the side, I had to go back through everyone. Sorry. I'm sorry. Egypt. Feckin' Egypt. And then my friend had to go on his own and not have anyone to enjoy it with. And I felt really bad. And I was wondering, what's wrong with me? Like, why does that happen? But obviously I'm in the minority if people are feeling like, fear is something that, are they developing an immunity to, or what is it?
Well, you could say there's something. I actually think that people who can experience great extremes, let's say people who go skydiving, who can do all sorts of really dangerous things like base jumping and stuff.
Yeah.
We call sort of adrenaline junkies, and sort of kind of revere them as being heroes, in our sort of popular entertainment world. And in fact, I actually call them emotional cripples, because they have to go to greater extremes to experience the kind of thrills, and I say normal people can experience, from simplest things like surprise parties or completing a crossword puzzle. And it's those people that really interest me, these people who you think are adrenaline junkies, who we'd all like to be. We'd all love to be able to get on these fast roller coasters. We'd all love to be able to go hang gliding and be fearless. But in fact, it's those people who are at the extremes who have been studied for the last sort of 20, 30 years by all sorts of academics to work out kind of what's wrong with them. And
interesting,
we find things like genetics is a really big part of what makes you the kind of person you are and the kind of things you like to do. So there's a particular gene which is called the D40R gene, which is the thrill-seeking gene, which geneticists found in the 90s. And if you have a defective form of this gene, then your body doesn't get the same kind of reward from dopamine. So dopamine is that kind of drug that gets released when you experience really pleasurable things. And it's a little bit like getting a high from, well, if we'd experienced it, people who are addicted to cocaine, that's exactly the kind of rush that you can get. And if you have a defective form, you just can't actually process the biochemicals, so you have to go to greater extremes to experience the same kind of pleasure reward that ordinary people get at lower levels. And strange enough, I actually 2 years ago was tested for this gene, and I have the defective gene.
Do you?
So I do. And that kind of intrigued me, because I thought I would be pushed to greater extremes, like doing really sort of dangerous sports.
And have you done mad stuff?
I've done some skydiving in the past, and I do some of the things like, ride a motorbike and do martial arts and stuff, which is kind of on the edges, but not really dangerous. It's not, I don't think there's massive danger to life in them. But I think my preference for sort of experience seeking. So there are two different types of thrill that we can get. There's thrills from sensation seeking, which is sort of bodily movement through space, so going something like a roller coaster or free falling through space, all those kind of lovely sensations. Or there's experience seeking, which is kind of liking to be challenged psychologically. And
I think I'd be more that type of person.
Well, that isn't surprising. That marginally female population tend towards preferring experience seeking rather than sensation seeking. It's only marginal shift, but again, it's another factor that can be brought to bear in this kind of stuff. So it's a real complex area, why we like the things we do, and it's, a question of nurture and nature as well. It's kind of, what are we...
But that's it. I was just about to ask you the very same thing. If it's genetic, I mean, surely if you were reared by, a family member who is maybe, a little bit nervous or frightened, does that not rub off on people as well? Does that have an impact?
Yeah, I think it does. I think during our formative years, definitely when we're little, the kind of things we're exposed to and experience, sort of become our framework of experiencing other things, really does set the tone for the rest of our lives. And if you come from a particularly fearful family, and you're taught that going on roller coasters, that doing certain things are dangerous, it can put the fear of God into you, and it'll become even more scary. So your perceived risks are much higher than, let's say, a much more happy-go-lucky family who are happy to take their kids to all sorts of extreme parks, etc. And they will probably start off from a much higher benchmark, let's say. But one of the other key things is the more you do something, a key aspect of thrill is novelty. And the more you do stuff, the more that you're exposed to certain experiences, the more or the less likely you are to be thrilled by that. So you need to go to seek increasingly extreme versions of the same thing, or other completely new and novel pursuits.
The good thing is, what I've learned from this is, I for years, and particularly when I was a teenager, I kind of felt like I was on the outside with my mates and I was a wimp. But in a way, I have the advantage because it's easier then for me to get a thrill. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, and therefore, for me as a designer of rides and experiences, I would be really interested in you. But that's not to say that just you're going to be happy with somebody just popping a balloon behind your head and you get a bit of a shock and then go, that was it.
Yeah.
I think there are subtle nuances. You have to look at somebody like Hitchcock, who could, a master of suspense and thrill and fear. who